I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, especially not during what was supposed to be the happiest time of my life, our honeymoon. Jessica and I had been together for years, and I thought we had a solid relationship. We were the kind of couple everyone thought was perfect, the kind that seemed destined for a happily ever after. But all of that changed in what felt like a split second. We flew to Cancun for our honeymoon, excited and ready to start this new chapter. Jessica was her usual self, flirtatious, confident, a little bitchy when she didn't get her way, but I loved that about her. She was sharp, sassy, and always had a comeback. I was proud to call her my wife, and I thought she felt the same about me. But right from the start, there were little things that didn't sit right. She was secretive with her phone more than usual, always making sure I didn't see what she was doing. She kept dismissing my questions with a biting comment or a quick change of subject. Small things, but enough to make me suspicious. Our first few days were perfect, or so I thought. We spent days lounging on the beach, nights at fancy dinners, and everything seemed normal. But then I started noticing the little inconsistencies. She'd get a text late at night, quickly hide her phone, and then give me a fake smile when I asked what it was. She'd say it was work stuff, that her boss was calling her for updates. She'd say she had to make a few calls during our romantic dinners, but I'd catch her whispering too long or looking overly anxious. I brushed it off at first, convincing myself I was just paranoid. It got worse when I noticed her phone had a ton of new numbers saved under strange names. I didn't recognize most of them, but one kept popping up, Jake. She'd always deny knowing anyone by that name, and when I asked her outright, she'd roll her eyes and call me paranoid. "You're overreacting, John. It's just some coworker I met at a conference. Nothing special." That's what she said every time I pressed harder. But I knew better. I could feel it in my gut, that nagging feeling that I was missing something. And honestly, I was starting to feel like a fool for believing her lies. One night I was browsing her phone while she was in the bathroom. I wasn't trying to invade her privacy, but I was just curious. Something about her lately made me feel anxious. That's when I saw the message. It was from Jake. The conversation was casual at first, but then it turned around fast, flirty, suggestive, talking about meeting up. I saw the text about the motel, saying things like, "Can't wait to see you tonight, and don't forget our secret, babe." My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe what I was reading. This wasn't just innocent coworker BS. This was a full-blown affair, and she'd been hiding it from me all along. I didn't wake her up that night. I just sat there, staring at her phone, feeling numb and sick all at once. I kept telling myself it was a mistake, that I was imagining things, but deep down, I knew the truth. Jessica had been lying to my face the entire time, sneaking around behind my back, cheating on me during what was supposed to be our honeymoon. I couldn't even process how I felt. Anger, betrayal, heartbreak, all swirling into one big mess. That moment marked a turning point for me, but I still didn't know what I was going to do about it. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a train. My mind was racing, replaying the night before on a loop, trying to find some way to make sense of it all. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly a little scared. The Jessica I'd known for years, smart, sassy, confident, suddenly seemed like a stranger. And that message from Jake, it haunted me. I kept thinking about what I had read, about her sneaky little texts, about the secret meetings she'd lied about. I couldn't believe I had been so blind, so naive. After I got out of bed, I decided I needed to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I needed answers. I waited until she was in the bathroom brushing her teeth, then I grabbed her phone. I hesitated for a second, feeling like I was about to do something I'd regret, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. I unlocked her phone and showed her the messages. Her face went pale. She froze like a deer caught in headlights. "Jessica," I said, voice trembling, "what the hell is this? Who is Jake?" She looked at me with that signature bitchy sneer, trying to act innocent. "John, it's nothing, just work stuff, I told you. You're overreacting as usual." I couldn't believe how she was lying so casually, like it was nothing. I pushed her hard, trying to get her to admit the truth. "Stop lying, I saw the texts. You've been meeting him during our honeymoon. How could you do this to me?" Her eyes narrowed and she snapped, "Oh, please. You're such a jealous maniac. It's just sex, John. It doesn't mean anything. Jake's just a coworker and I wasn't doing anything wrong. You're blowing this all out of proportion like you always do." I felt my blood boiling. How could she be so callous? She'd been sneaking around, lying to my face and trying to justify it with bullshit excuses. I wanted to scream, but I kept my voice steady. Inside, though, I was falling apart. I told her I'd had enough, that I was done listening to her lies. I told her I was going to find out the truth, whether she liked it or not. She rolled her eyes and shrugged, acting like I was the one being unreasonable. "You're paranoid. You always think the worst. You're just insecure because I'm better than you. Jake's harmless, and I don't owe you an explanation for what I do at work." That was the moment I realized I was dealing with a toxic, manipulative woman. Someone who could lie so easily, who could justify cheating during our honeymoon as harmless work stuff. But it was too late for that. The damage was done, and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I looked at her, tears of rage and heartbreak threatening to spill over, and I knew I had to decide what to do next. I wasn't going to let her break me, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. There was no way I was going to stay with someone who could lie so convincingly, who could cheat, and then insult me in the same breath. I just needed time to process, to figure out my next move. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting, only to find out she'd been cheating on me during what was supposed to be the happiest trip of our lives. The days that followed were a blur of anger, confusion, and a deep sense of betrayal. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I kept reliving that moment of discovery over and over again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneaky smile, her dismissive attitude, and those damn messages from Jake. It was like my mind was trying to punish me for trusting her so completely. I started digging, trying to find out everything I could about Jake. I looked at her phone again, checked her social media, anything that might give me a lead. I wanted to catch her in a lie, to see if there was more to this than just texts and secret meetings. And sure enough, I found more. Hidden photos, a few more text exchanges, even a hotel bill for a night she'd claimed to be at some work conference. The evidence piled up, and with each new piece my anger grew. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. How dare she betray me like this, during what should have been the best week of our lives? But I didn't want to just sit there feeling sorry for myself. No, I decided I needed to do something about it. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I started thinking about revenge. I know that sounds petty, but honestly, I didn't see any other way to handle it. I'd been humiliated, lied to, and played for a fool. Jessica always loved to be the one in control, throwing her bitchy attitude around like armor. Well, I was about to flip the script. First, I gathered all the proof I had, screenshots, hotel receipts, the texts, and organized them. Then I made a plan. I wasn't just going to confront her again. I was going to throw her own game right back in her face. I wanted her to see that her lies and manipulation weren't going to work anymore. I was going to make her regret ever crossing me, and I'd do it in a way that she wouldn't see coming. I started planting little seeds of doubt, making sure she knew I was onto her. I kept asking questions, acting like I was still clueless, even though I had all the evidence. I began to make her uncomfortable, to throw her off balance. That bitchy smirk she always wore was starting to crack. I could tell she was worried, but she still refused to own up. Every time I pressed her, she'd give me that condescending look, acting like I was the crazy one. That only fueled my desire to get even more creative. She had no idea what was coming next. I knew I had to be smart about this. I didn't want her to see my plan right away. I needed her to slip up, to show her true colors. That's when I decided I'd catch her in the act again, maybe set a trap, or use some of her own lies against her. I was determined to make her regret every sneaky little move she'd made behind my back. She thought she was so clever, so untouchable, but I was about to prove otherwise. I wasn't just going to walk away from this. I was going to make damn sure she knew she'd been caught, and that her world was about to turn upside down. Over the next few days, I stayed quiet, pretending to go along with her usual routine, but inside I was plotting. I had to be careful. Jessica was manipulative, her bitchy attitude often used to keep people at bay. She loved to act innocent, act like she was the victim, but I knew better now. I'd seen enough. She thought she could lie her way out of anything, but I was determined to turn the tables. One afternoon, I pretended to leave for work early, but instead, I set up a little camera in the guest room, right where she was meeting Jake. I wanted to catch her red-handed, or at least get some concrete proof that my suspicions were right. I knew she'd never expect me to do something like this. She was convinced she was untouchable, but I had nothing to lose. I just wanted to see her in action to see if she'd slip up again. And slip up she did. A little after noon, I saw her sneaking out of our house, heading to the motel she'd been meeting Jake at. She texted him as she left, and I caught every second of it. Watching her walk out the door, acting so casual, it made my blood boil. I could see her bitchy smirk as she looked around to make sure no one was watching. That smirk, that attitude, she thought she was untouchable. Well, not anymore. I waited until she returned, and I was waiting in the living room when she came back. Her face was tight, a little flushed, like she'd been running from something. She tried to brush past me, acting like she hadn't just been caught, but I wasn't about to let her get away with it that easily. I confronted her straight away. "You went to the motel today," I said calmly, but with steel behind my voice. "I saw you. You're meeting him, Jessica. You lied to my face for months, and now I have proof." She froze, then looked at me with that bitchy sneer. "John, you're making a big deal out of nothing. It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. Jake's just a coworker. You're overreacting because you're insecure." I shook my head, feeling like I was about to explode. "That's bullshit, and you know it. You've been sneaking around, lying to me, meeting Jake behind my back during our honeymoon. How dare you call me insecure? You're the one cheating, not me." Her eyes narrowed even more, her voice dripping with venom. "Stop accusing me of things I didn't do. You're just jealous because I have a life you can't give me. Maybe I wanted some excitement, a little fun outside your boring ass." That was the last straw. I realized I'd been played, used as her emotional punching bag. I couldn't believe I married someone like her. So manipulative, so unfaithful, so full of herself. At that moment, I decided I'd had enough. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with this. I needed to make her see that her actions had consequences, that I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. I told her she had one chance to come clean, to admit everything. Otherwise, I'd be gone. I looked into her eyes, trying to stay calm but feeling like I was about to lose control. I knew I had to act fast, before she could spin her lies again, before she could try to manipulate me into feeling guilty. I knew this was only the beginning of what would become a very long, very painful process. But at least now, I had the truth, and I was ready to do whatever it took to put an end to her bullshit. The confrontation hung in the air like a thick fog. Jessica's face twisted with anger and contempt, her usual bitchy smirk replaced with a glare that could cut glass. "You're making a huge mistake, John," she sneered. "You think you're so clever catching me, but it's just sex. It's nothing, and you're just jealous because I'm better than you. Jake's nothing but a coworker, and I don't owe you any explanations for my life outside your boring ass." I felt my fist clench involuntarily. Everything about her attitude made me want to scream, to shake her and make her see what she was doing. But I forced myself to stay calm, even though inside I was boiling with rage and heartbreak. I knew I had to play this smart. If I lost control now, she'd just spin even more lies, manipulate me into feeling guilty. I had to be the one in control, at least for now. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Jessica, you've been cheating on me. During our honeymoon. You've been lying for months about business trips, about being at conferences, while you're sneaking off to meet Jake at some motel. That's not just sex, it's betrayal, and I don't care what you say, I'm done pretending I don't know the truth." Her lips curled into that bitchy sneer again. "You don't know what you're talking about. You're just insecure. Jake's harmless, and I don't owe you any explanations. You're just jealous because I'm alive and having fun, something you're obviously too scared to do." I was losing patience. How can you be so full of yourself? Do you even hear yourself right now? You lied to my face for months. You lied about being away on business when I knew damn well you were meeting him. You don't get to call me insecure when you're the one sneaking around, sleeping with someone else, and acting like it's no big deal. She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "Whatever, John, you're just a jealous loser. I don't know why I married you in the first place. I should have dumped you long ago, but I stayed because I thought I could control everything. Guess I was wrong." That cut deep. I felt a mixture of fury and sadness. Her narcissism, her complete disregard for what she'd done. I wanted to rip her apart, but I knew I had to keep my composure. I looked at her, knowing that from this moment everything would change. I told her I was done with her lies, done with her manipulations. I said I'd be leaving and I'd make sure she paid for what she'd done. It was a long, brutal night. She continued to deny everything, tried to turn it around on me, accusing me of being insecure, jealous, and basically a terrible husband. But I was done playing her game. I knew I had to leave, that I couldn't stay in that toxic, manipulative environment. I packed a bag, told her I was going to stay with a friend for a while and that I wanted space to think. I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. I just wanted out. As I drove away that night, I felt a strange mix of relief and pain. I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, but I also gained clarity. I realized I deserved better than someone who could lie, cheat, and call it harmless sex. I knew this was the start of a new chapter, one where I'd rebuild, heal, and learn to trust again. But for now, I just needed to get away from her, to give myself time to process the betrayal and figure out what I truly wanted. In the days that followed, I threw myself into figuring out what I really wanted. The initial shock and anger faded, replaced by a strange sense of clarity. I had to accept that Jessica was never the person I thought she was. The woman I married, confident, sassy, a little bitchy, was also manipulative and unfaithful. She lied for months, sneaking around during what was supposed to be the happiest time of my life. That realization hurt more than anything else, but it was also a wake-up call. I started going to therapy, not just to cope with the betrayal, but to understand how I got here, to rebuild my self-esteem. I realized I'd been blind, trusting her too much, ignoring the red flags because I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. But now I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who thought the rules didn't apply to her. I learned to accept that some people are just toxic, and no amount of love or patience can change that. Revenge. I never set out to hurt her like she hurt me, but I did want her to understand that her actions had consequences. Seeing her try to manipulate her way out of it, calling me insecure or jealous, just strengthened my resolve. I didn't want to be with someone who lied about everything, who treated me like I was nothing. I decided I'd move on, focus on myself, and rebuild a life based on honesty and respect, something she clearly didn't value. The most important thing I learned was to trust my instincts. I'll never again ignore the small signs that tell me someone isn't who they pretend to be. I also realized that ending a toxic relationship is sometimes the best form of self-love and protection. Jessica's betrayal forced me to confront the fact that I deserved better, and I promised myself I'd never settle for less again. Now I'm healing, slowly but surely. I'm dating again, taking my time to find someone worthy of my trust. The pain still lingers, but it's getting easier to deal with. I look back at everything that happened and realize it taught me a hard lesson about loyalty, respect, and the importance of listening to that little voice inside that says, "Something's wrong." That voice saved me from more heartbreak, and I'll carry that lesson with me forever. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your gut, don't normalize the lies, and remember, you're worth more than someone who cheats, manipulates, and treats you like an afterthought. It's painful, yes, but sometimes the only way forward is to walk away. And when you do, you'll find a sense of freedom you never thought possible.